Hello, and welcome to this video on solving linear inequalities. So what is a linear inequality? A linear inequality is a type of linear formula that does not use an equal sign. Instead, it uses these signs. So you may be familiar with the signs on the left. Their meanings are greater than, less than, greater or equal to, or less than or equal to. That's what these signs mean. Each one means a different thing. So these are what linear inequalities look like. They look like normal linear equations, except instead of an equal sign, we have this different sign. So you can see we've got a greater than here, a greater than or equal to here, and a less than here. Solving them has the same meaning as solving linear equations. It is to find the value of x so that this statement is true. So what does x need to be for x plus 4 to be greater than 6? The answer is going to have one of these symbols though. The answer is not just going to be x equals something. The answer will have x is greater than or x is less than something for this statement to be true. So solving linear inequalities is very similar to solving linear equations. Once again, linear inequalities use these symbols. Greater than and less than equal to, greater than and equal to. Linear inequalities use those symbols. They are not equal. They are either greater than, less than, or greater than and equal to, or less than and equal to. For the most part, solving them is the same. There is one situation where it changes, and I will show you that in a minute. So this question here, 3x minus 5 is less than 7. So this less than symbol here in the middle, that is going to stay all the way through. That's just going to stay there all the way through. We don't replace it with an equal sign. We don't replace it with anything else. It just stays there. But we do move things over to the other side, same as what we did before. So we want to isolate this x, same as before. We have a 5 here, we want to move that over. Is it a positive or a negative? As you can see, it is a negative. So when we move it over, it will become a positive. So we will write 3x, because we've moved the 5, and we'll write 7 plus 5. 3x is less than 13, because 7 plus 5 equals 13. One final step, we want to isolate this x still, so we've got this 3 that needs to go. So we want to move the 3 over to the other side. This 3 is multiplying with the x, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So when we move it over, we will divide. So we'll write x is less than 13 divided by 3. 13 divided by 3. So that is the answer to that question. So let's do this question. X divided by 2 minus 1 is less than or equal to 4. Once again, these less than or equal to signs, these signs are going to stay the whole way down. We're just going to keep those signs. But we do want to isolate this x. So we want to remove everything else, step by step. We'll start with this negative 1 and move that over. Negative, the opposite of that, is positive, so it becomes a positive 1 over here. So we have x over 2 is less than or equal to 4 plus 1, which is 5. And then we have this 2 here that we want to move over. Well, what is the 2 doing on the left side? It's dividing. So the opposite of divide is times. So when we move the 2 over, we times by 2. So x is less than or equal to 10. And that is our answer for that question. We just want to isolate the x and move everything else over. So far, these questions have been exactly the same to solving linear equations. But before I said that there is a slight trick and that some questions are not the same. This is one of those questions, and I'll show you why. We will start as if it is. So I'm going to write all of these down here. So keeping those signs all the same down. And we're going to start moving things over. So once again, we want to isolate this x. So I can move this positive 6 over. And eventually I want to move that negative 4 over. But let's start with the positive 6. The positive 6, so let's start with the positive 6. When we move the positive 6 over, the opposite of positive is negative. So it becomes a negative 6 over here. So we write negative 4x is greater than or equal to 2 minus 6. Well, 2 minus 6 is negative 4. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Now we want to move this negative 4 over. This negative 4, yes, it is a negative, but the operation it's doing with that x is multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So we will write x is greater than or equal to negative 4 divided by negative 4. So we're keeping that negative there with the 4 when we move it over, but we go negative 4 divided by negative 4. So x is greater than or equal to negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. However, this is not the answer for this question because of this one simple factor. There is one rule that was discovered a long time ago when it comes to linear inequalities and solving linear inequalities. And that one rule or that one trick is this. If you are dividing by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. So looking back at this question, are we dividing by a negative number? We are. We are dividing by a negative number. It's right here. We are dividing by a negative number right here. So because of that, we need to flip this sign here. So I'm going to get rid of that and I'm going to flip it so that it's facing the other way. It's still going to have that little line on the bottom because that's the same sign, but we've flipped it to face the other way. And that is the answer to this question. X is less than or equal to 1, not greater than. All right, that is this video on solving linear inequalities. I hope you understand a bit more on how to do this. See if you can make some questions for yourself and answer your own questions.